Welcome back to a very special, as always, Andrew Says, on the Rebel News Network. We are here with Eric Butler. How are you, Eric? TatumReport.com. Report and opine on Instagram. Coming back from Texas at CPAC.
Yes, Dallas, Texas. I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me, of course.
No problem. I wanted to get you on and talk about our beloved Bo Biden. Every single time I think we talk, there's a new Biden gaffe. Have you been watching some of this stuff? Like, it's getting worse and worse. And I know we probably talked about it before that it's, getting as bad as it could possibly be. But I want it, like, there's even, like, as we speak, I'm sure he's doing something. Olivia, do you have that one that's him putting on his jacket? I think I sent you a couple.
The flight jacket, right, where he couldn't really get the flight jacket on. Is that what happened?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. It's sad. I think it goes on for a minute and a half. I think I sent you a couple of those, Olivia, in the chat there. But he's coming off of Air Force One, I think. Yeah, show this. Or he's coming off of whatever helicopter one is it called. I don't know. With a mask, of course. I don't know how we explain that one. And he just can't. And his poor wife. Can you see this, Eric?
I can definitely see that, and I wouldn't say his poor wife at all. I think she's actually the mastermind behind this thing. She's letting this guy drive it into the wall, and she needs to be held accountable.
I think there's a minute and a half there of him trying to put on a jacket, and she has to help him. He doesn't know really what he's doing. He picks up something off the ground too, which is amazing. I heard, I forget who it was, on one of the networks. I want to say MSNBC, but I shouldn't just say that, but I will. They're saying Jill Biden should be the Surgeon General, and she's got a doctorate of education, I think is what it is, isn't it?
Oh, that was Whoopi Goldberg, wasn't it? Whoopi Goldberg.
Was it Whoopi?
Said, yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Can we try to find that, Olivia? I didn't send you that, but Whoopi Goldberg talking about Jill Biden. Like, are these... Could they be? I know Joe Biden was vice president, but I still want to say he's unqualified because he doesn't know where he is. Jill Biden, I mean, she said that she said a lot of stuff about him, like she doesn't think he's going to run. I believe she said she gave what did she say in the speech? The Bogotas of New York.
Oh yeah. That was the breakfast taco. That was the same speech, right? Jill Biden, the whole entire Biden family, and this is very peculiar. I don't even know how it got this bad. Like, maybe it was just pre-iPhone era, pre-social media that we couldn't really, and that's why we see so much censorship. I always want to bring it back to that, between the censorship and this two-tier justice system that has been exemplified by what happened to Donald Trump last night, that I'm always screaming about. But how did it really get this bad? I mean, that's an honest question. Like, was it like this in the Clinton era, the Bush era, Obama, or has it just, excuse me, has it really just been kicked into overdrive because Donald Trump was going to do something that these people just, I mean, how do you justify this sort of crazy lashing out? It's just inexplicable. I truly don't know. And as you know, will this wake anybody up? That's always the question. Will it wake anybody up? Will somebody say, all right, because Cuomo came out and said something I was kind of saying, so maybe, I don't know.
Right. Well, we have the, let's hear what Whoopi said this. We have that here. I see that.
Dr. Jill becomes a Surgeon General.
Surgeon General.
Yeah, Joe Biden's wife, because he would never do it, but she's a hell of a doctor. She's an amazing doctor.
I thought she was a doctor and PhD. Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I think she's a teacher, but
Look at her on the end. So, like, I used to think that Whoopi was the most sane one because I remember when they wanted to blacklist, it was the people from Will and Grace wanted to blacklist Trump supporters in Hollywood. She said, we don't do that sort of thing. And I was starting to think she was one of the more sane ones. But then with the TPUSA stuff and this, she didn't even know she was a doctor. You should just be Surgeon General. I don't know if she's a teacher or not or what she's got a doctorate in, but I thought she was an amazing surgeon or something. Then they had to do this thing where they walked back their TPUSA claims. And I know Will Witt's been talking about this on his new thing, the Florida Standard, it's called. And there was people who dressed up as neo-Nazis, which is always a plant. I don't think there's been a neo-Nazi group since like the 80s. and people said they still get free speech, but they tried to say that it was part of the TPUSA event. They had to walk that back, and she said no, they just agree with them. Then they had to walk that back, all within like the span of one show. And then she said that they share some of the same ideologies, and she had to walk that back. So I don't think that Whoopi Goldberg knows exactly what she's saying at any given time, but I guess you get away with that at like, what is it, 11 in the morning or like 1 in the afternoon, depending on where you are. It's like you go on The Price is Right and say something, people probably aren't going to notice.
Well, I'm also curious though, because she said it so confidently, like, "Oh, she's a hell of a doctor." Like, what are you talking about? You don't need, like, yeah, she's a hell of a Jill. But what, Whoopi? What are you talking about? And secondly, I know that there was probably some Trump kids working in his administration, but they don't like that, right? Like, can we imagine if take the Cuomo brothers for instance, if we have Chris Cuomo on CNN. Obviously, some years ago or a year ago, whatever, he left. But if we saw Don Jr. or Eric Trump or any of those people who had a regular television show, it would be nonstop chaos. They would say you can't do this. But so for Whoopi to immediately just say, well, yeah, that's his wife. Like, is there no sense of like nepotism there? Just because you don't even know what you're talking about. She's a hell of a doctor. You just literally made that up. And B, you're just saying, well, she just deserves it because she's Joe Biden's wife. Like, what are you even talking about, Whoopi? And this is how we get there. This is how we get to these radicalized people that they love the left-wing people are loving the Trump raid on Twitter. And it's because they watch stuff like this, obviously CNN. So I don't know, man. I like to think I go back and forth. I like to think that most people can see through it. But then again, sometimes I just don't know, man. It's a tough call.
Well, have you seen this handshake yet that happened today as we film this?
Yeah, where he went back to shake his hand again.
Yeah, like let's show that. This is literally, I counted 4, maybe 5 seconds. Let's play this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hand out again. Within 5 seconds, he forgot. And then did I already shake his hand? Within 5 seconds, he forgot where he was and what he was doing. That's pretty devastating. Like, I don't know how they had him hidden for 2 weeks, the first bout of corona, and then 6 days or something after that, he was testing positive again. So almost 2 weeks, I think he was basically out of commission, off camera, and then he comes back and does that. But what about the conspiracy, Eric? Imagine they were doing this on purpose. Maybe I shouldn't even said that because we're going to get off on a tangent. Imagine they just send out a guy who's not Joe Biden, and he's just like, let's make him look ridiculous to distract from everything else. But
we saw the robot Biden, right? Like, people were talking about the robot Biden clip.
Right, the CGI one. Shout out to that guy with the sweat hanky, too, of course. Out there perspiring next to Joe Biden there. Throw that back up, Olivia.
I don't know what's going on here, bro, but it just becomes so painfully obvious. And I think this is why they're throwing every single thing at the wall, bro. Like, are we to believe that it's just a sheer coincidence that he said he had cancer, then tested positive twice? Now, I may have missed it. I was driving and doing the CPAC thing, but did he just come back out here and start shaking hands with the air again or looking for another handshake again? But did the news break that he tested negative now? Like, I mean, don't we hear so much about, test results and positive, negative? Did we get a report that, he tested negative and now he's back out?
See if you can find that, and we'll stop making you run around here, Olivia. See if you can find an announcement of him testing negative now. Because if I didn't see that, I saw that he tested positive again the other day, and I think he came back out from the woodwork yesterday, out of the basement, as they say. Remember when they used to say Trump was hiding in his basement all the time, and then Biden literally conducted a campaign from his basement? That was pretty amazing. But I think he came back out yesterday. But this Trump raid that they're doing, or that they did, the FBI on Monday, or is today? Yeah, it's on Monday. And
yesterday, yeah.
And they're at Mar-a-Lago. I guess probably what's going to happen is the Florida governor is going to look into it. But I read that they said, okay, I see it. Throw that up. Biden test negative for COVID.
Okay, there we go.
We'll continue isolation. Well, he's not isolating, that's for sure. So that must have been what date? What's the date on that one? 2 days ago. So he's out of isolation already. So I guess something was too important. August 6, that says. So he's already back out and about, forgetting where his jacket is. Oh, he's sick from COVID. He doesn't know where he is. But I read in all the information that they put out with this Trump raid this week it was about documents that he took from the White House that they requested several times to get them back from him, and that was what it was about. And also they mentioned that Joe Biden in the White House has no idea about this. So you go and raid a former president, the previous president, and the current president has no idea about that. I don't see how that's possible. And if that is possible and that did happen, then you have a head of the FBI who admitted that they did know about it, going rogue and basically doing something that hasn't been done since, what, the 60s? Or was it the 70s? I'm not sure, with Watergate, where they go and raid them and find this. It's pretty strange that Biden wouldn't know about this, but they're probably thinking, we can't handle anymore. We can't handle Joe Biden answering this question. But that's what I want to hear, Eric. I want to hear Joe Biden's explanation as to why this happened, don't you?
Well, in Joe Biden's defense, I can't stand this guy. I think the entire family is totally corrupt. But in his defense, he doesn't know what's going on. Like, it doesn't surprise me that he didn't know. I would venture to say they told him, and it's just so, he's in the wind, bro. That guy, he is not pulling the strings. He is not running the country. How many times we see all the gaps, the handshakes and stuff, the hair sniffing, but how many times do we get him on like the quote unquote hot mic? He's like, "Whoa, where am I going? What?" Like he doesn't know what's happening, so he would not be able to explain this at all. And unfortunately, he won't have to. And just to bring it full circle, that's the 2-tier justice system that we see. Like, you can imagine Donald Trump saying that Joe Biden was colluding with Ukraine was enough for them to impeach him just for saying that. So it's just so crazy. I would love nothing more than to see Joe Biden explain this, or Karine Jean-Pierre spin this thing and tell us exactly why this happened. And what's crazier though is that when you watch the left-wing Instagram accounts and stuff, they're all so celebratory, but they're just eating these little droppings every single time. Like these people who are cheering this they still believe that Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 black people. They still believe that Jacob Blake was shot dead. They still believe, every single thing. It's like the Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, or Lucy in the football. Like, we got him this time. Bro, it's all a complete facade, and they refuse to see through it. This is no longer like just regular ignorance. This is like being so steadfast, like ignoring things on purpose.
Has Charlie Brown been canceled yet? I feel like it must have been. There's got to be something in Charlie Brown that's been canceled. But I think when your invisible handshake counter goes above 1, then it's time to start asking questions. I think he's at least 2 now. There's the one where he turns off to the side and nobody's there. And now 5 seconds, Eric, and he's forgetting that he shook a man's hand that's standing right in front of him. That's incredible. Have you seen what's in this new inflation relief package, Olivia? See if you can find that. I think Fox had a short list of it. I'm sure somebody else has a bullet point of the inflation relief bill, I believe it's called. And it's a lot to do.
The euphemisms never stop.
I know, right? That's how they sell it. That's how they, even though on the surface, you don't even have to dig into something that's called inflation relief. We're going to print more money and spend more of your money in order to reduce inflation. I believe the correct thing to do would just literally be send the money back to you. You've collected it through taxes, to literally give it back. I think that's about the best thing you can do. But I know it has something to do, they've got some credits in there for green energy. I'm sure there's Ukraine stuff. They passed another $500 million, as I call it, to Ukraine recently. Do we have anything on that yet, Olivia? We need to keep looking, probably.
I think the most notable thing that I saw was was it 78 or 87,000 new IRS agents?
The IRS thing.
Yeah. That's like the title track, as some might say.
Some might.
But my thing is, and everybody's talking about, they didn't raid Hillary. They're not going after Hunter Biden. And those are all true things, right? Those are 100% valid questions. However, I'm a little bit more concerned with why you can hire an army of IRS agents, but you can't put anybody at the border. Are we to believe that these, I don't want to get, I forget the exact numbers, 87 or 89 or 90, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's 87,000 more.
Yeah, to go after what? 200 billionaires in the entire country? Well,
they haven't said that. There's a clip that came out on NBC the other day where he said, "Are these going to only be these going after people only making over 400,000?" And the guy said, "We're not going to do that." So what I hear when a country without money and who's spending out of control says that we're hiring more IRS agents, it means they're going to be milking people dry for as much as they can. Throw up whatever that is, Olivia. Inflation reduction. What tax hikes are on the bill? Let's read some of this. Months of negotiations, $739 billion over the next decade. Revenues going towards initiatives, of course, designed to combat climate change and curb pharmaceutical prices. I mean, some of that could be good, as well as efforts to reduce the nation's $30 trillion bet. It includes...
Now, I do think...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think that, and you can fact check me on this, but Trump had some sort of executive order that was putting a cap on pharmaceuticals that was dissolved by Joe Biden, and now he's doing it again. So it's the same thing that we saw when he says, "Oh, well, we created X amount of new jobs." It's like, no, you just gave people their jobs back after you took them away. And are we to believe that these agents, are they going to be tracking the financial status of these migrants that have hopped over the fence and they're busing all over the country? Are you going to track them, or are you going to track the guy who just deposited $601?
I think we've discussed it before, but I know in Canada, refugee employment rate is around 10%. Now, I don't know if it's the same for the U.S. at all because of how many, people from Central America would claim refugee status. They're probably more work able than people coming from a war-torn country. But that, I think, in itself tells you that there's a problem with the refugee system if somebody's just coming to another country for economic reasons as opposed to, which was Syrian refugees coming here. Don't ask me why we selected a particular one. It was just the person at the time. Let's bring that back up, Olivia. I know there was $433 billion in new spending, while roughly $300 million benefits. Republicans argue the measure does little to tackle higher prices. And even left-leaning economists are saying this too. Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office will have a negligible impact on inflation. I know Bernie Sanders says it's going to have little to nothing. Not that he's an economist. It's the fact that he's disagreeing with, his own party on it. Talking about how it wasn't the $2 trillion corporate minimum tax. Impose a 15% minimum tax on corporations based on profits they publicly report in the financial statements to shareholders. The levy would only apply to companies that report more than $1 billion in income. Democrats said the levy would affect around 200 of the country's largest corporations with profits. So we're taking money from the large corporations and we're putting it towards climate change. I think it's another one of those situations, Eric, where it's take it away from other billionaires and put it towards my friend who's also a billionaire so that his energy corporation, because they like to attach things like green energy to a person that, just loves everybody. It's green energy, therefore it's just made of love. There's nobody making billions of dollars off of it. Elon Musk, perfect example. Electric cars, richest or top 3 richest men or people in the world. Persons even. So just the idea that it's going towards green energy is supposed to mean that it's good. But we all know that green energy doesn't automatically mean electric cars, even though that you have to, there's that famous video where it's being powered by a coal plant nearby. But it also means solar panels, which are made in China, which I'm sure it's going to funnel their way somehow. And of course, wind energy isn't nearly as efficient as everybody would like it to be right now. So I think, Eric, it's another situation where I prefer my billionaires over your billionaires, but we're saying that we're saving you guys while we do this. No?
Yeah, well, I think you're actually maybe giving them a little bit too much credit, even to say we're all supposed to believe that it's good when you talk about green energy. Like, yeah, I guess for the regular normie who's just like the surface level, like Californian, maybe that works. But I'd venture to say that when most people hear green energy, they think scam. I mean, think about Solyndra. Remember Solyndra? I mean, it was a complete and total scam. They've been doing
what's
this.
That?
It was some sort of green energy firm that Barack Obama gave government contracts to, however many billions of dollars in the Bay Area, I believe, of all places. And it failed after like 2 or 3 years. So it was, to me, I mean, it kind of felt like a money laundering scam. Solyndra, it was maybe 2013 or something. Don't quote me on that. You could look it up. But that's what I mean, that's like tattooed on my brain. It's like this green stuff is a complete and total scam. And their lack of, again, I don't know if it's a lack of knowledge or if it's just willful malice. But they'll tell people, oh, it's just going to be the companies, the billion-dollar companies. Like, bro, that's like, I get it. The billionaires, like they're all so successful, corporate greed. But that stuff is going to trickle down. Like, do you think that a car that cost you $25,000 in 2019 is still going to cost you the same amount, even though they're forcing these new taxes and all this stuff? That gets trickled down to the customers, and they never want to put the dots together. They always want to pretend that these things are completely separate from each other, and they're just not. And I don't know if this is like they literally don't have the brain power. Like, I mean, this is like 5th grade stuff. Like there's a chain, and that's why even with Rona, like they were, oh well, we're just gonna shut down the whole economy. Like that ruins everything. It's a domino effect, and you're pretending they knew it was a managed decline. They knew exactly what they were doing. But there's some people out there who think this is think it's good. It's crazy to me. I don't know how we reach these people.
Well, if you think about it, if it's an Inflation Reduction Act and we're charging the companies that we already buy from more, I think it's pretty obvious. Like, conceivably, this would be the Amazons, Microsofts, Walmarts, companies that are gigantic would be paying more in tax. And then we're already paying higher prices because of inflation. They're just going to raise their prices more. So either they want people to go poor or they want these companies to earn less money. Either way, it's not going to work out good in terms of reducing inflation harm. And like I said, if you really want to reduce inflation, there's like $500 million in there you can just give back to people or put into something. I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to give subsidies to companies, like to grocers or farmers, something to make their things cheaper, the things that you absolutely need? And dare I say it, gas companies, even though I don't think they need the money, conceivably it would make sense to give them the money so that they could lower the prices for everyone. Because if you just give out $500 million to 300 million people, let's say, it's not going to be much money per person, but perhaps you gave it to a few companies, they could lower their prices. So I think what they're doing is actually the opposite. I'm not an economist, but I think I'm smart enough to know that when inflation is high, printing more money is not the correct thing to do there. It's to be more stringent with government spending and make sure you're not printing money and probably make cuts to the government. And I think we can start in a few places.
They would never do that.
Of course not.
They would never do that.
I think one of the newest ideas was cutting the Department of Education that Trump said, even though isn't his that Betsy DeVos girl, isn't that his appointee?
Yeah, but I think she's been saying that the whole thing has been corrupt. I mean, she was supposed to be, the kind of like the education Trump, where she was going to kick down sandcastles or something. So I will say that I don't trust these teachers unions. So I think all of these government entities have been completely soiled. They're rotten from the core. So it's going to be tough for me to find one, even before this FBI raid, even before all these new IRS agents. Like, it was going to be hard for me to trust one that was actually working in the people's favor. And while this is all happening, they're saying, oh, well, the Inflation Reduction Act, and, green stuff and healthcare. So they need to raise money for that stuff, right? So that's why our taxes are going up, or perhaps they're not actually going up, but they're going to be more strictly enforced. So Joe Schmo, who makes, $30,000, $35,000 in a year, he's not going to be able to skate anymore. So they're coming for that $6,000 that this guy who's just barely skating by owes them, right? So perhaps the taxes aren't going to go up, but they're just going to be looking at it with a fine tooth comb and make sure that they get you. But while all that's happening, they're giving $1 billion worth of military equipment to Ukraine. And let's never forget what happened. Was it last August, about a year ago? Was it August? The Afghan withdrawal, where they left billions of dollars worth of equipment just on the ground there. And then they come back to us and say, we need more money. Same thing with Scott Wiener, California senator, the creepiest man in all of American politics. Oh, monkeypox is it's an emergency. We need more federal funding. It just never ends. Like, everything is an emergency. Everything needs more federal funding. And we can all see it. Well, I guess all of us can't see it, but a lot of us can see it now. And as soon as you start to talk about it, then you get shadow banned. You get your YouTube videos demonetized or deleted. So I hate to say it, and I don't know where we are as far as like a paywall or something, but we've been in this war for a long time. And I think last night might have been like a little bit more of an official declaration. I would say, maybe I'm getting off track a little bit here, but I would say sort of Biden dipping his toes into this declaration of war was back in last summer, when he said something along the lines of, this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. My patience is running thin, or something like that. Like, my patience is running thin to people who just decided they don't want to take your elixir, that we have the 4K video of you 6 months earlier saying, who's going to take it? I wouldn't trust it. And now it's mandatory because you're in charge. So that was the soft declaration. And this, whether Biden claims he didn't know about it or not, this is a hard declaration. This is where that censorship that we always see turns into, because the left will always say, well, you have free speech. It's a private company, blah, blah, blah. But this is where that turns into hard power. And it's, I guess, pretty scary, bro.
Well, now we have Nancy Pelosi doing damage control about her trip. Who knows what she was doing there? But she comes back and she says, as we know, China is one of the freest societies in the world. Can we find that quickly, Olivia? Nancy Pelosi, China. It's from today, I think. And she's citing, of course, some study, I'm sure, which is not a very good one, or just measures, economic something or other. Because, you could potentially run a business in China and make a lot of money. The government's going to control it if they want to, but you could potentially run it and maybe run it easier and start one easier than you can in America or Canada, but who knows? And I want to get to you about your time at CPAC there, when people said, let's show Nancy Pelosi. She just looks like she could easily be replaced by like a banshee or something. And I know that sounds mean, but everyone in this Biden administration is so decrepit. Let's show this.
Support the one China policy. We go there to acknowledge the status quo is what our policy is. There was nothing disruptive about that. Okay. It was only about saying China is one of the freest societies in the world. Don't take it from me. That's from Freedom House.
Let's talk a little bit.
Democracy, courageous people. And it's just, I don't know why it is, except there's some commercial interests who would like to diminish the relationship. We still support.
So people don't like China for any other reason other than wanting to diminish their commercial interests that other people have. That's insane. So one, saying that she went there and doesn't cause any controversy. Is that why they started rolling out tanks into their streets and threatened to shoot down the plane? And then to say, we believe in the one China policy, even though she wasn't saying that when she was in Taiwan. And then the director of the Pentagon was saying that she was wrong when he was here on U.S. soil, on North American soil at home. But Pelosi's not saying it over there. And now she comes back and she says, China's amazing. It's only a one China policy. It's not me saying it's one of the freest countries in the world. That's somebody else saying that, the freest society.
Some weird left-wing think tank or something, some weird left-wing think tank. But I think maybe this is – I think she just did her little chip deal, right? And we know that the chips come from Taiwan. So she's going there. Now, I do understand that she sold the chip stock perhaps under the pressure, the media, whatever. But it seems like that could have had something to do with it. I don't know. People fly around all the time. Ask Hunter Biden. So she's trying to close up some deal with Taiwan, And I don't know. I don't have much love for China, so whatever. She can go there and do it. But don't come back and pretend like she's not ruffling feathers and that China is one of the freest societies. We just saw the report last week of CNN discovering that China is not one of the freest societies. Right?
Yeah.
So they're all over the place. This woman is awful. She has the little monkey paw thing that she does. And she, Nancy, you won. You beat the game. You're 116 and a half years old. You're never going to get prosecuted. You're never going to get investigated. You have all the money in the world. You have a mansion on the hill in San Francisco. You've got a wall around it, even though you say that walls are racist. You beat the game. Go home. Leave us alone.
That's right, Pelosi. Think about that next time.
Nancy, I'm sure she's watching.
Were the people you spoke to at CPAC, I know it was 68%, I think, said that they want Trump in the nomination. Is that the feeling you got there, that people are ready for him to come back, or are they less apprehensive or more apprehensive than maybe a random poll suggests, do you think?
I think the vibe was that people definitely wanted Trump. Now, he was headlining the entire convention. So if DeSantis was the headliner and Trump wasn't there, you might have had a different crowd of people, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of made that mistake because I genuinely wanted to know. But I do think that traditionally the common sense folks or the right wing people are more open to a debate. We see that, obviously, that the left wing typically doesn't like to talk. They have the squeaky toys. So I think it was the answer to your question is yes, they are ready for Trump. But it was basically a Trump event, and I would like to talk to maybe go to a different event that Trump's not at and see if there's a different vibe, I guess. But with that said, there were some people who were quick to say DeSantis. I even got a couple of people that were ready for Kristi Noem. So I was surprised by some, but I also got some people that were very. I don't want to say disgusted, but they did not like Kristi Noem at all. So there's a pretty wide range. But all that said, it was a Trump event. Most people there were ready to support Donald Trump again. And I think at this rate, bro, and this is going to sound like a left wing thing, but literally anything would be better than Joe Biden. Like Nancy Pelosi said, a glass of water with a D on it. Kanye West. I mean, anything would be better. Like, just stop, bro. But here we are. We have, and now with the midterms coming up, I think we are at the point where, especially with this raid, I would have said this before the raid, but now this is like doubling, tripling, quadrupling down. If we don't see, the Republicans shift the House and the Senate and all that stuff, then we're going to know basically, concretely that this is not a fair, like this game is rigged from the top down. I mean, there's just no way. It
will be interesting to see President Kanye if all that happens. Or if you ask Andrew Yang, who's actually come out against the raid, now he's learning that his fans are insane and not very smart. If you ask him, then everybody's going to vote for a third party in the next race. Upwards of 78%. Says Andrew Yang. So maybe you'll get the Forward Party coming in number 1, and the Birthday Party coming in number 2. Eric, we're going to let you go. We're going to see if we can get An0maly in, and we thank you for coming on again. Eric Butler at TatumReport.com and Report and Opine on Instagram. You can watch his recent stuff with CPAC, and altreporter.com is another place you've been posting that Alex Stein interactions with.
Yes, go ahead and check it out. And we got loads more coming. We talked to some, I don't want to say big names, but some pretty interesting people. So check out my page and the Alt Reporter page. And Tatum Report, of course, for different content.
That's right. All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers.
Now entering the chat, An0maly. How are you, good sir? Thanks for joining me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Now, I've wanted to talk to you about this today because I saw you put something out. I saw you put out a poll on Twitter that interested me, and I knew from that about this Trump raid on Mar-a-Lago, or the FBI raid, I should say, that maybe you had an interesting perspective on this. Now, the poll was something about, do you think it was orchestrated to make Trump more popular? Now, I don't know if people know that the FBI director, I believe it was appointed by Trump Now, haven't heard anything yet, and again, we're like a day into this, that something, I haven't heard yet that the Republicans are doing anything about it. Maybe DeSantis is going to do something. But what is your reaction to that, especially considering the Biden administration's claiming that they had nothing to do with it? I'm not sure I believe that, but do you have a different perspective than what's out there on there? I feel like you might.
Yeah, well, I'll start off by saying I think he's getting a raw deal. Like, I don't think they're that much interested in Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Hillary Clinton, Biden, his son. These are things they're not interested in. So I'll start out the gate by saying I don't think it's being put out there equally. You get what I'm saying? However, in America, it's not like we've had Justin Trudeau for like 10 years and the opposition party hasn't had a chance to have any sort of power. Donald Trump was in the White House for 4 years, and he put in that same FBI director who's overseeing the FBI now. And as much as Trump says, I'm fighting the deep state, apparently that Director Wray is not that big of a threat because Joe Biden kept him there. So there's a lot of moves that Trump made where I feel like he put a pharmacy lobbyist and executive at the head of HHS, which is our entire health department. That was the person who ended up declaring the emergency for coronavirus. So, putting a pharmacy lobbyist at the head of HHS is almost like putting Bill Gates at the head of the environmental agency. So, he did a lot of questionable things, and I guess my only thought is not, blaming him for this as far as like he's completely guilty or anything. I think he's getting a raw deal, but rather that they sat there for 4 years and didn't really do that much. So, I don't know why they thought that wasn't going to backfire. And I'll just say this and be honest, if you say like Hillary Clinton's a very powerful and to some people scary. I mean, I'm not scared of her, but, a politician with a lot of power and clout. And if you say you're going to lock her up like Trump did several times, and you don't lock her up, don't be surprised when the other party comes in and tries to lock you up. So I think it's just like game theory rather. But it's like if you're going to say that and not do it, expect them to retaliate. So I think he's getting a raw deal. I don't think it's fair, but I think he likes to play the victim a lot, and his base likes to act like they're just shocked at everything. But it's like, hopefully we learned our lesson, and if Republicans take power again, maybe they'll do something this time, because last time they really just empowered a bunch of pharmacy lobbyists and people that were swampy and then ran around the country for 2 years selling these mRNA vaccines as the greatest human achievement ever. So it's just hard to feel bad for them when I feel like I was betrayed and America was betrayed by their leadership in the last couple of years.
I did see that there's an email that went out for fundraising off of the FBI raid. Do you buy their reasoning that it was for some sort of classified documents? Do you think that Trump would be holding classified documents in his possession at his golf course home? Don't you think if he was purposely withholding them that he might be hiding them somewhere? Or do you buy that excuse from the FBI, or is it too early to tell?
I would say that my best guess, I don't know for sure until it comes out, but my best guess is that, Trump probably did something that a lot of other presidents have done and probably got away with. Like with Trump, they're looking for an excuse. I mean, it almost made me like him more because they're looking so hard and they barely had any evidence at all with the Russia thing. So it made Trump way more lovable. You're like, wow, he must really have his hands clean if they can't find anything. So with this type of stuff, like maybe they got him on something that's like, a technical rule or something. So I would say maybe it is true or something, but I'm sure it's something that a lot of other presidents do and isn't seen as a big deal. So when you're Trump or a conservative, you got to really extra watch yourself. So we'll see when it all comes out, but that's just my own personal guess for now, is that he maybe did something that like is a technicality that a lot of other people get away with, but I don't really know.
An0maly, have you seen this new Inflation Relief Act and what's in it? And I wanted to ask you specifically about it as well, because I give you credit for being one of the earliest people to point out how much the inflation was coming. There's you, and there's another guy named Mocha that works here because he's from Turkey, so he knows how it starts. But
right.
I think 2019, on one of the earlier episodes of my show, you said the hyperinflation was coming from all the stuff, or all the money that Trump was printing. You got into a debate about it with Styx. That was a big thing, one of those big online debates. And you turned out to be right. I agreed with you on the premise of what you were saying. One, are you getting the credit you deserve on that? Of course, we can brag on this show. And two, this new inflation relief or inflation, whatever they're calling it, package, where it's another $500 million to Ukraine and all this money for climate change. What's your opinion on why they are doing that? Do you think that they're doing this just to get as much money out of the system, the American people, as they can before they're inevitably, have power taken away from them? Or do you think this is, let's go full steam ahead on actually trying to do this climate agenda? Do you see what I mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. To answer the first question, I appreciate the credit, but to me, it's just common sense. In 2020, people get so caught in party politics because, either they love Trump or hate Trump. So you have the left who never wants to give him any credit, and the right who will defend anything he does. So I just looked at it and I saw both parties come together to print the CARES Act. It was like a multi-trillion-dollar bill. They're funneling tens of billions of dollars to big pharma. We stopped production for a couple months. Everybody's locked inside. And it took a couple years even to get back to a semi-normal state. We're not even back to a full normal. So I just saw that and I was like, we'd be lucky to not hit hyperinflation. I think we'll be all right. But when you print that much money and stop production and stop supply chains, it was only a matter of time until all of that building up kind of collapsed. Because, it's like, everybody has money for a year or two because they're printing money and giving you money. But this is basic economics that's going to fail eventually. So I want to say, I think both parties are responsible, but then Biden comes in and he pours kerosene on it and just makes everything worse. So I think Biden does deserve some responsibility. It's not like he's an innocent victim. But the Republicans always play this controlled opposition game where they do 40% of it and then act like, they're going to fight them next time, and they just never do. So appreciate the credit on that, but I hope a lot of people have figured it out by now. And with this new act, they're saying it's an Inflation Reduction Act. That's the name of it. But when it passed, you can see major headlines saying we finally passed through a climate bill and a health bill. And I'm like, wait, I thought it was to reduce inflation. I believe they're trying to add 87,000 new IRS agents to come take Americans' money. And they had some sort of little vote on whether it should just be for 400,000 and over. And that apparently didn't pass. So they're going to be going after people who make $0 to $60,000, 60,000 to 100,000, everybody. More. I guess it's a pandemic of we need to suck every dollar out of the American working people after a real pandemic. I guess that's what they're doing. So we see what they're doing here in America and all over the world. They are trying to use climate change as an excuse to just redirect everything like a new normal, great reset style stuff. I'm not saying the climate's not changing, but, I would say it's a very dumb conspiracy theory to think, they always say you're a conspiracy theorist. I think the dumbest conspiracy theory in the world is thinking Joe Biden, Klaus Schwab, Justin Trudeau, and AOC and Elizabeth Warren are going to save the planet from the climate crisis. It's like, yeah, there's things that we could do better environmentally, but a lot of this is just kind of making government bigger, taking away American sovereignty. And over the next course of years, you'll see that, they're trying to make government bigger and bigger and bigger and personal liberties smaller and smaller. So just more of the same. I would say in America, the Democrats are the worst, the greater of two evils. But the game that they keep playing is they keep putting in people like Trump, who albeit maybe did more, they make you believe that they're going to be different. They thought George Bush was different. Then liberals thought Obama was different. And now people thought Trump was different. And even if he proved that he kind of wasn't, they want a second term, which I get he's better than Biden. But I believe this is the game they're playing. A successful politician convinces you that they're different so you don't hold them accountable like another politician. I'm not telling people to hate Trump and not even to not vote for him if you want to, but treat him like Mitch McConnell or Ted Cruz and this country will get better. You treat him like he's above everybody else and he's got some sort of special plan, you're going to see a lot more of the same. Big pharma printouts, and as much as the right wing says they're fighting socialism, in 2020, under the guise of a pandemic, they did more socialism than I've ever seen in 1 year in my entire life. So it's all talk with the Republican Party.
It's very interesting to see the attempt at the Democrats right now to really go for everything, and somewhat successfully when a bill like this gets passed through. There's been a couple that were blocked through, I want to say, exposure to the public, but the Ukraine stuff always makes it through from both sides. Now this one was a tiebreaker, making Kamala Harris the deciding vote. But now I think that they're able to do this stuff. I think I don't know if it was an act or what it was to limit firearms as much as they could. Now I think that'll probably get struck down when it's challenged, like many other things do. But now what they're doing is they're coming after the ability for people to defend themselves, and I think that's the last straw. Of course, they've always been doing that in a bit of a sense, but they're piling up a lot of, and I don't even want to call them victories, but they're piling up a lot of momentum here where it doesn't matter how people feel. And I think Justin Trudeau, as you mentioned, as one of these proprietors of this, a couple years ago realized it didn't actually matter what the public thinks. As long as they present it in the formal way and they have everybody on their side to vote for it forward, they're going to do that regardless of what the public thinks. And I think they're going to try to do that the best they can. And I bring this up because there seems to be an influx of evidence now of people defending themselves, and some of the powers that be that don't like that. Do I think Joe Biden and Pelosi are straight up communists? No, I don't, but I think it goes along with their plan to not have a populace that can defend themselves should they say, hey, we want to be we want to be in charge for the next 20 years, whether it's the next person that they get voted in or if they change that in some way. But there's all these videos coming out. I don't know how many of them you've seen. There, of course, is the famous bodega guy defending himself. He ended up getting off after public pressure. There was a Vegas store clerk who stabbed a guy a bunch of times. He was getting robbed by 5 people, I think. And Olivia, see if you can find the other one. I think I sent it to you earlier today, of a mother and a daughter. I just want to watch this with you and get your reaction. There's a mother and a daughter defending, I think it was an independent liquor store. Olivia, do you have that? It's the news report of a mother and a daughter, and they're defending their liquor store. I just feel like there's so many more, maybe we're being more exposed to them now, but there's so many more instances of people getting, it's in our messages from earlier. Yeah,
I would say,
right there.
Who lives in America, the violence seems, I mean, I don't know the stats, but it seems like robberies are way higher. Like, I live in a place where there's not a lot, and there's a lot of smash and grabs, and it's starting to increase all over the country. So, definitely cell phones are a big reason why, and like Twitter. But I do think that robberies and theft and violence is increasing in the major cities, and they're becoming lawless, and we're losing morality in this country. I mean, it's not terrible, but I wouldn't go to New York City or Los Angeles right now. That's just...
Let's actually throw behind the paywall for this, since we're about to show some violence. I forget about that. Back to me, Olivia, for 2 seconds. RebelNewsPlus.com. You will get the rest of this conversation with An0maly. We're going to ask him about his time at the Turning Point event in Florida, and we're going to show apparently somebody enacting some self-defense against some robbers. Can't forget that. We know you guys want to see it, so we want to show it to you. RebelNewsPlus.com, and you will get all the paid shows under one umbrella. See you guys there. Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. To get the full version of the show with bonus segments, go to RebelNewsPlus.com and sign up now.